every single person needs to have a strategy. And it needs to be based on your goals. Just like they have strategies, meaning the government, the central banks, the corporations, they all have strategies based on their goals. And they know how to get you to do what they want you to do. Perception management. But you know, sometimes all these great plans go awry. And you don't really know. Actually, it's pretty interesting because while, you know, I have had a lot of people say, well, sometimes I say that this is an experiment, but isn't it all planned, et cetera, et cetera. And the outcome is what is planned, but how you get to that is a big fat experiment. And it doesn't always work the way they want it to work. Either way, we might not really know what their real goal is. But what we do know is that at the end of this great experiment, the whole world will be reset socially, economically, and financially. And I think that it's critically important that you put yourself in a position to weather any outcome and maybe even to benefit from it. Because if you don't hold your purchasing power, you have nothing to rebuild on. Fed and ECB still behind the inflation curve, and central banks risk a pileup of monetary policy tightening as inflation expectations become more embedded. Let me tell you, they're going to have to raise rates, but there are going to be limits on that. Some market commentators have characterized this as a hawkish pivot. If it is a pivot, it is partial at best, still too slow, and risks in overcompensation later this year. I don't think they're going to be able to overcompensate, but currently the two banks' extremely accommodating policies are inconsistent with both their change in language on inflation and developments on the ground. So you remember my daddy, do what I say and not what I do. They don't want you to be prepared all the while that they are definitely preparing themselves for the end of the current fiat money regime, and so they can stay in power as we move into this new one. And quite honestly, if you want to stay in power and in control of your future, of your family's future, then I think really you should take a page out of the central bank's book. Now, not on the mean side, but on the other side. Surprised again. Wow, European factories send inflation warnings as France overshoots. And wow, all these people are surprised? And haven't they been surprised at the inflation right along? Why are you still listening to them? Are you surprised? Your boots on the ground. You go to the grocery stores and to the stores to buy, your energy and your food and everything. And they want you to believe that you're only experiencing 7% inflation. And even that is surprising to them. It's incredible. But you should not be surprised by any of this. Unexpectedly hits record. I don't think so. Now, I know that we're talking about the Eurozone in here, but that is one of the key central banks. And they've held interest rates below zero. They have run that test since 2009. Well, Sweden was the first one to do it in 2009. So in the Eurozone, I believe they've run that test since 2010, and it hasn't worked. And now with global synchronization happening again, and this time I'm referring to bond synchronization and bond interest rates. And what is a bond? A bond is a debt instrument. So where people count on government bonds being the safest thing that you can do, I don't buy it, and I hope you don't buy it either. because governments can and do default, and they are out of their element. Their experiments are failing, and they are losing control. And that is what this is really showing you. Central banks, is it all planned? Yes. We have no purchasing power left, and interest rates have been anchored at zero or below zero even since 2008. And all of this money printing has been about buying time to get into position to transition into that new currency. And I know the central bank's hope is that it's a CBDC, a central bank digital currency that they program and they control. I don't think that's such a good idea. I think gold is a much better bet because you can always convert gold into any currency, any good, or any service. But the reverse is not true. You can not always convert any currency into goods and services, or gold for that matter. What in the world do you want to hold when we go into this transition? Because if what you hold are dollars, we're going to have a problem with that. I want me and you to own the gold. I don't want the central banks to own it. But they're buying it, and they are suppressing the price because that's easy and cheap to do through derivative contracts. A derivative is derived from an underlying asset like silver and gold, but then it can never convert into those physical gold and silver. But you can control an awful lot of gold and silver on just a regular CME contract. $150 controls 500 ounces of gold and 5,000 ounces of silver. So by selling those derivative contracts, it makes it seem like there's a tremendous amount more silver and gold out in the marketplace. And that, my friends, is what is keeping these prices so low. So you have a choice here, because you can actually believe the garbage that they want you to believe and stay inside the fiat system. Anything that you can only convert into dollars, euros, yens, whatever, that money is inside of the system. Or you can have real money, silver, gold, in any form is monetary at its base, that is truly outside of the system, that is truly decentralized, that has a proven historic track record.